we're all privileged to be here because you were there, and that's quite rare when we get to hear from someone like you. But may I ask this, on some of the other discussions in regard to what has occurred in regard to these issues, did you feel that there was an inside group of very limited people who were allowed to give an opinion on this debate, or do you feel that you made an effort to consult all of the experts from a broad array with at least reasonable consultation before this was done? There's been kind of this feeling that that has been an accusatory comment in regard to the way things were handled in this administration. You were there, and I want to just say that I realized that the pressure was on, the buildings were smoking, and I understand the urgency and the need for quick action. Notwithstanding this, did you feel that you looked at all that you feel that the decision makers, and you were a part of that, looked at the experts in the area that the country could offer before that decision was made?
You're trying to put me on the spot, aren't you? Well, I think the way to answer this question is I believe at many levels, if not the majority of the levels, the system did its job, meaning our experts opined on these matters and engaged in the effort to communicate it up to the decision makers. And I think a lot of it did actually reach the right people. Now, in making the decision, what I can say is there was a select group of people who had ideas in their mind that, I guess let's say they were unwilling to bend, despite some of some recommendations that were out there.
Mr. Ambassador, as a nation representing the rule of law, it is apparent that we're clearly operating outside of the rule of law, and the appearances are extremely strong, and I cannot see how we can rationalize to the rest of the world, based on appearances, that we are coping within the rule of law. In fact, if anything, 7 years later, you would think we could have created new laws to deal with the kind of situation, because we're not operating under the law of wars, we're not operating under the law of peace. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah. Well, I think I alluded a bit to it in my remarks. I actually disagree with the statement that we're operating outside of the rule of law. I think that there's a belief that we are within the law, and there's a belief that, as you said, there are people who believe that we're outside. But what it is there's a disagreement as to what law applies. I mean, that's the fundamental problem, because there is a rational legal argument that can be made for what the United States has done. There's an argument on the other side that can say what the United States is doing or has done is illegal. So it's not as though it's a clear statement by the United States that no law applies, or outside the law, forget about it, and we're going to do what we want to do. It's just it was a difference in views. And in fact, I think what probably should have happened or could have happened at the end of the day is you draw from different bodies of law instead of being boxed in. I think we have time for one more question.
Mr. Ambassador, I greatly appreciate your remarks. I'm just curious as to what the impact, if any, was on your thinking in relation to the representations you got from senior government officials from the United Kingdom from a very early stage. I mean, we know, for example, that privately, not publicly, but privately, the British Attorney General made very clear his view that there were many aspects in relation to the process that was being set up as early as late 2001 that was patently illegal. And I suppose my question is this: with the benefit of hindsight, do you think it would have been preferable to have paid more regard to the views of allies such as the United Kingdom in relation to the design of the regime that was going to be put in place?
Yeah. Well, hindsight, and even at the time, we actually examined a lot of these questions, and so there are papers that history will disclose that thought through a lot of the issues and even some of the points that the UK Attorney General raised. So we did evaluate. The question is, what was the ultimate decision that was settled upon. But also, I think it's important for people to know, and here I will disclose some facts, that the UK was of two minds. It was not as though the UK was aligned with the Attorney General and had this view of closing Guantanamo, let's get our detainees back, and this is wrong. You know for a fact that there was a significant segment of the UK government that had an opposing view, and was, in fact, there was a divide. They were engaged in the same debate. It was a challenge. Let's put it this way, the best way for me to put it. It was a challenge to have the UK detainees returned back to the UK. And in fact, many other countries accepted their nationals before the UK did. And that is because the UK had this internal debate and had, as I said, two minds. I wish we could spend a little bit more time on this, but I'm instructed to close this down so that we can remain on schedule. I thank you for your attention, your time, and your questions.